China kicked off its largest ever military exercises encircling Taiwan on 4th August in an apparent show of force, straddling vital international shipping lanes just a day after US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi became the first American official to visit the island in the last 25 years. Pelosi's visit has garnered a strong reaction from China and its allies, including Pakistan and Afghanistan. Both the countries issued statements reaffirming their support to the One China policy. This comes at the same time as a drone strike killed Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in Afghanistan, giving rise to speculations hinting at cooperation between the US, Pakistan and Afghanistan in counterterrorism. So, we asked academic Raff Patunnci and foreign affairs journalist Kamran Yousaf what heightened US-China tensions mean for the Af-Pak region.
I honestly don't know the specifics. Sorry, let me try again. I don't know the specific reason as to why she chose to go now. She seems to have decided that there was a moment that she needed to do an East Asian trip, and she visited a number of countries across the region, including Taiwan. It has been a long time since she's been around the region, so I guess it makes sense, but I'm not exactly sure the exact trigger for going at this moment in time.
I think it is too early to say that will there be any negative fallout of Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, because we have to understand that when it comes to China-US relationship or tensions between the two countries, that has been going on for some time. Of course, that the visit of Nancy Pelosi, see it as a crossing the red line because they see it as a provocative measure. But given the fact that when it comes to Afghanistan, we have seen that even during the height of tensions between the US and China, both countries have actually cooperated on the issue of Afghanistan. So I think that barring statements here and there, when it comes to the larger security in this part of the region, I don't think so that there will be an immediate fallout of this visit by the US House Speaker.
I mean, undoubtedly so. I think what we've seen is that the Chinese have, took a lot of umbrage at this visit. In the lead up to it, they said they expressed a lot of anger towards it, and then after it, we've seen that they've reacted quite dramatically. And I think the ripple effects will be probably most directly to Taiwan, frankly, and I think the Taiwanese economy is the thing to get hit most dramatically, and we've already seen that with the wave of new sanctions and tariffs on individual goods that are sold from Taiwan to the mainland. So I think that's going to be the most immediate effect. I think in the wider context, I think, the way China enforces the sort of semi-blockade it's now enforcing around the island, and the way these military drills they're undertaking play out, and the degree to which they disrupt regional trade, I think will potentially have longer-term ripple effects, because there's been a lot of noise from Western security officials and agencies saying that, China and Taiwan is the next big issue and something big is coming soon. And frankly, companies have begun to wonder what exactly that means. And I think they're going to start to see here what that potential impact could look like. And so you start to see them having to think about, what are the second and third order effects of this kind of a clampdown or this kind of a blockade or this kind of a blockage within this part of water and the wider repercussions of that. So I think that's what we're going to see in the short to medium term. I think in the longer term, it's very difficult to tell if we'll end up returning to the sort of status quo that we had before, where essentially the US is Taiwan's biggest supporter, but at the same time, China is, this is a sort of great bone of contention between the United States and China.
I think we have to also understand that this is also the stance taken or the long-standing view of the United States. They also publicly support One China policy. They never recognize Taiwan, although of course that they maintain certain contacts with them. They even provide them the defense equipment. So if you see in that context, Pakistan's position is not different. And also I'm sure that the US policymakers understand Pakistan's close relationship with China. As you know, that Pakistan and China are both strategic partners, and one of the bases of their strategic partnership is that both countries support each other's core interests. For example, China always stood by Pakistan when it comes to the issue of long-standing Kashmir, and even during or after the 9/11 attacks, when Pakistan was a frontline state in the war against terror, there was also criticism against Pakistan by the West, particularly the US, that we are playing some kind of a double role. And it is always China that came to our rescue, reminding the West the sacrifices that Pakistan made in the fight against terrorism. So in the same context, Pakistan always support one China policy because they understand that China's territorial integrity is, of course, something that is a red line. So whether it is on the issue of Taiwan or on the issue of Hong Kong, Pakistan always support that policy. So in that context, I don't see that Washington is really reacting differently, I should say.
I'm not a believer that this is going to escalate into a conflict. I think the fact that we saw President Biden and President Xi talk a couple of weeks ago before the visit, the fact that Secretary Pelosi was, slightly diplomatic in some of the things she chose to do around the visit, suggests to me that there's a desire from the US side to try to pull the punch a little bit. And on the Chinese side, they have to respond. They have to escalate their response from what happened last time. In part because each time this happens or something like this happens and they make all this loud noise about it, there has to be a reaction. But also because I think, you've got the Party Congress coming up, and I think President Xi doesn't want to, and China doesn't want to be seen to, being weak on what is a core domestic security issue from their perspective in front of their sort of biggest adversary. So I think there's lots of reasons why we're seeing this dramatic surge, but I also think that there are, some sort of parameters in place between the two, which means that they will avoid as best as they can to ultimately get into a shooting war with each other.
Well, when it comes to Zawahiri's killing, of course, that there were a lot of speculations that whether the drone flew from Pakistan or whether Pakistan provided the critical airspace. Of course, that I spoke to relevant officials here in Pakistan. They completely deny this. They said that whatever happened inside Afghanistan, it was purely internal matter of Afghanistan, and the drone never flew from Pakistan. Neither Pakistan's airspace was used. But of course, that at this point in time, such a policy suits Pakistan's interests, because Pakistan cannot afford publicly acknowledging if they had played any role that, yes, indeed, this airspace or was used or the drone flew from Pakistan, or they provided any kind of intelligence. So I think we should see in this context. As far as the overall relationship between Pakistan and the US is concerned, there has been visible improvement in terms of both sides interacting with each other. We have seen that Foreign Minister Bilawal also met with Secretary Blinken. Then we also saw even Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa spoke to US CENTCOM chief, and there are other exchanges as well. So this also reflects that there is a keenness from both sides to improve or reset their relationship. And of course, when it comes to Afghanistan, the Taliban government supporting China's view, I think this is in the context of how over the years China developed close relationship with the Afghan Taliban. Even before they took over, we have seen that a number of senior Taliban leaders visiting Beijing and China, and they were given warm welcome over there. And I think even Afghan Taliban understands that in the long run, they know that the US has pulled out of Afghanistan. In the long run, for the reconstruction and the rehabilitation, they certainly need the support of China. And there has also been talk of extending CPAC to Afghanistan. So in that context, I think Afghanistan, or the current Afghan government, is backing China when it comes to the issue of Taiwan.